How's everybody doing tonight? Good. Well, like Josh said, my name is Caden Fulton, leader here at UI. And today I will be talking about being anchored in truth and what it means to be anchored in the truth of who Jesus is. So if everyone that has a Bible or has the Bible app can turn to Matthew 7:24 through 27. I'll give you a little bit of time. All right. We're going to go ahead and jump into it. It says, "Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house. Yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash." All right, where are all my Star Wars fans in the room at? Yes. Big Star Wars fan. I absolutely love Star Wars. My favorite movie is Revenge of the Sith with Anakin and Obi-Wan. We don't really talk about the sequels though. Those kind of suck. But I'm a big Star Wars fan. I've watched all the Clone Wars, all of the prequels, even the originals, and yes, the sequels. And as Disney picked it up, I noticed that it started getting a little bit sucky. It started sucking a little bit. Yeah, so even though it started sucking a little bit, I was still staying with it. I was still watching the series and watching the movies. And, my favorite that's come out recently is Mandalorian. But besides that, they've all been kind of mediocre. And just like how I'm still devoted to staying with the Star Wars franchise and figuring out all the new things that are going on, even though Disney takes it up and it sucks now, Jesus wants us to be devoted in him the same way. Jesus wants us to be anchored in him so firmly that we cannot be pushed or pulled away from him. And in order to be anchored in Jesus, we have to build our lives firmly on Jesus himself and let every part of our life be filled with who Jesus is and who he has made us to be. You see, whenever I think of something being anchored, I think of, the boat in the water, dropping down the anchor below the ocean, going down to the bed and just sinking firmly into the sand. And whenever that anchor is dropped, that boat's not going to be able to be pushed or pulled away from the position that it's in. And it's in the same way that Jesus wants us to be anchored in him firmly, where we cannot be pushed or pulled away from him. So what does this have to do with being anchored in Jesus? John 14:6, it says, "Jesus answered, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." Point number one, to be anchored in truth is to be anchored in the knowledge that Jesus is the one true way to the Father. You see, in John 14:16, Jesus is making a very bold statement. He is saying that I am the one, the only way to the Father, the only way to salvation, the only way to joy. There is no other way, no other God, no other false idol that can lead to salvation. But sometimes we can follow and build our foundation on other things in a belief that it will bring us to the same joy and the same feelings of salvation that Jesus promises, but ultimately makes us feel worse, causing our foundation to crumble and our metaphorical house to fall. Matthew 7:26-27, "But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who builds his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash." You see, sometimes Some examples of things that we can build our house on could be maybe a relationship, a boyfriend or girlfriend, or friendships even, or social media, sports, popularity, and even worry. And it is easy to build our house on something that is not God. Like for me, I know I catch myself sometimes building my house on worry. Sometimes focusing on what I'm doing or what I'm not doing right, and then focusing on maybe things that I should be doing better at, or all this stuff, or like, why am I not doing this? Why am I not doing that? And it influences my choices. It influences my actions and my words and the outcomes of my actions. A good example of being anchored deeply in God would be the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So a little bit of context. The Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they were three men that were Jewish exiles in the book of Daniel who refused to worship a golden idol built by King Nebuchadnezzar and would later prove their deeper faith in God. And during this time, the Babylonian Empire had conquered Judah and taken over many of the Israelites and put them into exile and made them worship many false gods and idols. And ultimately, Israelites were in a foreign country that they didn't know, and they were ruled by an empire that worshiped a false god that they didn't worship. And they were being forced to do that or they would die. So picking up in Daniel 3:13 through 18, it says, "Furious with rage, Nebuchadnezzar summoned Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So these men were brought before the king, and Nebuchadnezzar said to them, 'Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the image of gold I have set up? Now when you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music, if you are ready to fall down and worship the image I made, very good. But if you do not worship, you will be thrown immediately into a blazing furnace. Then what God will be able to rescue you from my hand?' Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to him, 'King Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and he will deliver us from your majesty's hand. But even if he does not, we want you to know, your majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up.'" You see, even though they were threatened with being burnt in a furnace, they did not rebuke God or worship the false idol. They still chose to be loyal and faithful to God. They were threatened with death. They were so deeply anchored in God that even the threat of death was not enough to pull them away from him. Point number 2 is when I anchor my life in Jesus, it allows him to transform my life. See, before Jesus, my life was very messy. It has all these family issues going on, all these just things that I wish I didn't do. And I was filled with anger. I was filled with hate towards other people. And then my family members were out of the church. They were separated, some were distant, and haven't gone in, I think the longest it was 4 years. And just like we were really disconnected from God. But whenever I found my way to God, he was able to transform me from a person filled with hate and anger and rage to a person that is filled with love and love for other people and confidence in his love for me. And the fruit of God's relationship with me was able to bring my dad back into the church from being gone for so long. And even now, I'm still being transformed. That's a constant process, and I'm still going through storms. The waves and the rain are still hitting my house. But because I'm going through it with Jesus, my house is not going to crumble. And some of the ways Jesus has transformed my life has been to help me align my will with God's will, to live out what he has planned for me. He's helped me to be a light to others, to bring others closer to him. He's helped me to be confident in his love without worrying of others' opinions of me. And he's helped me to love others the way that he loves me. And I just wanted to say that transformation is not a one and done thing. Transformation is something that happens most likely your whole life. Your whole life you will be going through transformation, and there's not going to be a certain point in your life where you're just gonna be like, God, can I act like this? Or God, can you just give me this discipline immediately and you'll just have it? No, God transforms us over the long periods of time. He gives us the fruits of over a long periods of times. Discipline, just love for other people, all that stuff. So even though you may not feel like you're where you want to be or where you think that God wants you to be, you're exactly where God wants you to be in your faith, because he's still working through you, he's still working with you, and he's going to transform you further. So as we move through the rest of our night and the rest of our lives, really, I just wanted to ask you this question as I wrap up this message is, what are you anchoring to? What are you building your house on? Is it Jesus or is it something else? And that's all I have for you guys today.